So you want to be a better sniper. You want to be a better recon sniper. Good for you. I highly encourage that because you know what? Because recon is badass. And I love the recon class in Battlefield 3. Now, however, there are some things you got to do in order to make that happen. And one of those things is having the mindset of what you're actually playing. Now, let's think about that. There are a lot of people that don't play only one game. I'm one of those people. I like to play other games too. I don't like to just play one game because I'm not a fanboy. But if you want to like stray away from the game that you love to play, and that's perfectly fine. And let's just forget everything you know about Call of Duty, everything you know about Halo sniping, and Crysis 2 sniping, and any other game that involves sniping, because this is Battlefield 3. And with Battlefield 3 comes dice logic. And with dice logic, there are a lot of things that are going to piss you off in a lot of situations. And in order to stay away from getting pissed off at dice, let's just remember that it's Battlefield 3 that we're playing, and there's going to be times when it's going to happen. Now, knowing that, there are some things about being a sniper in BF3 that you have to know about. One, you got to remember that there is gravity in the game. There is gravity, and that means there is going to be bullet drop. But this doesn't always go with every type of sniping that you want to do. If you want to do nothing but close quarter sniping, bullet drop's not going to be that big of a deal. If you're going to be one of those long range snipers, then you're going to be having to compensate for a lot of bullet drop because depending on how far you are, of course. Now, I for one am not one of those long range snipers that use a bipod and just sit on a mountain and just kill people, because that's extremely difficult to do, especially on consoles. With only 24 players and 12 on each side, you're not going to be finding a lot of people to shoot, and most of the time you're just going to get killed every single time you try to do it by players that know how to get those guys that are just sitting in the back. Choppers will love to kill you a lot of times, so if you are going to do it, I recommend finding a good place. But this is about close quarter sniping to medium range sniping. Alright, so in order to actually get prepared for playing Battlefield as a recon, you're going to have to know your weapon and what to use. There's a lot of snipers that you can use, and a lot of them are all great. And a lot of them are also like barely even used at all. Now, we're not going to go into the shotguns or the PDWs or anything like that right now. We're going to stick with what you actually start off with at the very beginning. Now, since this is going to be for the newcomers to Battlefield for the most part, I want to be starting off with the very first gun that you unlock, or actually what you start off with as a default sniper. Now, this is not really what I consider a sniper rifle. What I consider this is more of a DMR, kind of like when Halo is with their DMR. So it's kind of very similar. You can put different types of scopes on it. You have a 12-time scope, you have the reflex. This is completely useless, and I highly do not recommend using it, especially since you have to be extremely close to use it. The one-time scope for the IR&V scope is just not good. The infrared is terrible after the patch. 7-time scope is one of my greatest ones, and in a minute I'm going to show you how it looks and why it's not really recommended for a lot of other people as well. The M145 is not that great. It's okay, but because it blocks half the screen, it really isn't all that great. This is also another one. However, it does block a lot of the screen. It does have the little triangles which you can use to aim, and it has a lot better accuracy, unlike the ACOG, which in my opinion, but both the ACOG and the PSO1 is also great. The PKAS is also another good scope, but I don't normally use it, but it is a very good one as well. I haven't unlocked the Cobra for this gun yet, only because I haven't used it that much, mostly because I like using bolt action. The PKA, it has a very good scope of a 3.4x, and because it's such a great Russian scope, I highly recommend using this for DMRs, only because it gives you a big screen while you're aiming down sights, while also being able to see what's around you. You have a really good zoom, and you can see everything around you as well. And that is why I really recommend using this for DMRs. Now, I want to be referring to the semi-automatic snipers as DMRs, not snipers, so just as a warning. Now, when you first start this game, you're going to have like this. It's going to be like this. And it's going to have an 8-time scope, and nothing else. Now you can also put like a suppressor, tactical light for snipers. You can have a laser sight and a bipod for here. Now I don't use any of those and a foregrip, but you have to unlock all this. And when you first start off, you're not going to have anything. And the very first thing you got to remember is how to use this setup with just these two things. Now after that, you're going to get your SV98 as your first bolt action sniper, and it's going to have a 7x scope as a default. The straight pull bolt, it's for follow-up shots, and with that, without it, you're going to you have to zoom out in order to reload for the next shot to get ready for it. And you can also use the bipod, which also goes the same way. You have to place it down, and after you take a shot, you got to aim out and then get ready for the next shot. With the straight pull bolt, you don't have to like aim out in order to get ready. You have an instant follow-up shot. Now I highly recommend using this than a bipod if you want to be aggressive, but if you want to be one of those passive aggressive people, bipod is usually one of the ways to go because you don't have any scope sway, and it allows you to make very accurate shots. Even though they're coming straight at you, you'll be able to suppress them, and I'll get into suppression in a bit. Now this is my setup that I usually do. I usually like to go, when I use the SV98, the SV98 is a very good close quarters sniper, and it's my favorite sniper in the game. I know a lot of people don't like it, but a lot of people do at the same time. The hip fire is amazing. You barely have to even look. And with the laser sight, if you want to be even more aggressive, it makes your hip fire a lot better. Now, before I get into the bolt actions, I'm going to start off with this gun, only because it's the very first gun that you have to use in order to actually get the SV98. And then after that, you start getting your other snipers as well. But let's start off with how you first start the game. Now, while you're using the MK11 Mod O, you have to rely on your teammates for a lot of the times. And because of that, you need about 5,000 points to unlock your first unlock for it as a recon. This is called the tugs. And with this, it's a motion sensor. You place it down, and every second, it's going to have a beeping sound. And when that beeping sound happens, when an enemy gets close, it's going to make a different sound. And when that different sound happens, you have to always look at the minimap. And when it happens, it's going to show a red arrow for an enemy. And I know for a lot of the guys that know about this, I'm sorry, but for those that haven't been playing that long, I hope this is beneficial to you. And with that, it'll spot them. It's not spotting them, but it's showing their motion on your radar, which is highly effective for a recon. The recon really relies heavily on the radar. Radar is your best friend, remember that. After you use the tugs, place it down anywhere, and it's going to definitely help your team out because it'll tell your teammates exactly where your enemies are going to be going. It's not going to tell you where they're at, but it'll tell you where they're going to be heading or if they're near your area. After that, you're going to unlock your SV98 at 13,000 points. With that, you'll start off with the 7x scope and everything being default. Alright, before we actually get into the gameplay, we're going to have to know exactly what everything else to use. Now that you know what the tugs is, now that you see right here, and then we'll have the SOFLAM and then the MAV soon in the future, along with the Expo when it gets there. And that's only from the Aftermath DLC, which I'll talk about in the future episodes as well. But while talking about the tugs, we also have to remember that the first thing you get is the radio beacon. With the radio beacon, your squad will be able to spawn on that thing, and they can use a parachute if they're outside in the open environments, or if you're inside a building or something, they just spawn on it. Now you have to remember that there are times when you can spawn on a radio beacon, and even though you have that 1 or 2 second spawn protection, it's not going to save you for every situations. There are some people that like to troll, and they like to sit there and wait for people to come by and then blow you up in C4. So that's a disclaimer about using this, but if it's used correctly and in a good spot, it can be very beneficial for your squad. And then if you can switch squads to tell them, hey, spawn on me, they spawn on your beacon, and it can change a tide to a game instantly. The second thing you have to know is your sidearm. There are a lot of pistols in this game, a lot of pistols. And when you get them all, which my favorite is the M1911, I use that for a lot of situations, and it helps me out a lot. Now, when you first start this game, you're probably going to get the M9, and the M9 is pretty good. It's not the best, but with 15 shots, 1 in the chamber, it is a really good semi-automatic pistol. Now, there are other things with the tactical light and the suppressor, but let's just start with the normal one, only because that's what you start off with. There are a lot of other pistols for different situations, and a lot of them are good, some are really bad, and some are very kick-ass. But there are some times when it can be unreliable as well. Every gun has its pros and cons, and pistols are no exception. The next thing you gotta know is your specialization. Now this thing is for your squad, not just for you. It's for everyone in your squad. Now there are a lot of different things you can use, and one of my favorites when I'm using a sniper or bolt action or just a plain recon is using the squad cover thing, because it allows you to have that split second or 1 second of being like immune, kind of, so to speak, to the suppression mechanic which is in this game, and then I go into dice logic. But with this, it helps you a lot, and I'll talk about suppression in just a sec. With this one, squad explosives, it allows you to increase the number of explosives in your rockets or in your rockets and equipment, like like the mines or your C4 count. Now this doesn't really go with the recon that well, and this is why I don't usually use it, because it doesn't give you an extra mav or an extra tugs or anything like that. But it is very nice if your team already has the cover, so you get to use this. Now for the squad flask, it's going to reduce damage from explosives, and this thing is very good for recon as well, because there are times when people like to put throw grenades and spam them right at you if they know where you're at, like in a tall building or away from everyone or something. They'll be able to throw a grenade to get you scattering around, and grenades are highly effective for this, and they are super dangerous for recons as well. And with a lot of close quarter sniping, which you might probably want to do in the future, you're going to need this as well as somebody using squad cover. If not, you're using it, and vice versa. For squad sprint, it doesn't really go well with the recon unless you're using a shotgun or a PDW weapon. It's just not going to go well with bolt action or semi-automatic DMRs. And with that, I don't really recommend using the sprint. The squad sprint doesn't really do much, and it's not that great. Even if you are going to be an aggressive recon, it's just not going to help that much. Squad ammo is really good if you're using the DMRs, but for bolt action, you're probably not going to run out of ammo that fast unless you stay alive and shoot a lot of bullets, and then you need ammo. But that's when the support comes in and they can give you ammo, but sometimes they're not always being generous and they don't like to give you anything. So squad ammo is good. I don't really recommend using it, but it is good. Now frag, for instance, is very, very good, and I highly recommend using it as well if you want for recon, because there are times when you're in a good spot and you want to do some damage while you're behind the enemy lines, and since you're going to be aggressive, you're going to need an extra frag in order to scatter your enemy and then snipe them while they're trying to get away from the frag. It's very effective, and it gives you 2. That's what that number 2 is there for. And instead of having just 1, you get 2. Now, suppression. Squad suppression is very good as well. It is very, very good for a sniper and very good for recon, because it allows you to suppress an enemy even if you don't hit that mark. Even if you don't hit the target, what you're looking at, or at least get a hit marker, you're still going to be able to suppress it. Now, this is when I talk about suppression, because suppression is a bitch in this game. It really is. It's annoying, and it really makes the recon suffer dramatically. Now, what suppression is, and what DICE decided to do in this game, is that when you're getting shot at, it's going to make your screen blurry. Alright, that's fine. I can understand that. But the second thing it's going to do, it's going to mess up your accuracy. It's going to make your bullets go all over the place, and you won't be able to hit your target, especially if you're using a bolt action. And that is why I recommend using the cover, because it allows you to make that 1 second a chance to hit your target, even though you're getting shot at. But the thing about this is that when you're getting shot at and you don't have the cover on, it's going to make your shot useless if you're using bolt action. If you're using the DMR, you're probably going to be able to hit the target, because you'll have the forgiveness of missing, because you can just do a follow-up one and go pow, pow, pow if you want to. But there are a lot of people that go pow, 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 just like spam it, and it's really annoying, and it doesn't do anything for you, because you're just making it worse for yourself. Now, when you're getting suppressed, that's why I'd recommend using the cover. Yeah, suppression is also good because it's like vice versa. It goes back to them and it suppresses them if you're using like a DMR, which is why DMRs and squad suppression is also very good. If you're using bolt action, then I recommend using squad cover. Alright, now that you know these guns and equipment, you're ready to start up and start the first gameplay. Now, since, like I said, there's all these like pistols that you can use, but for those that are just starting out, you're going to be using this gun, and pretty much this setup is what you're going to be using with the no gadget. You're probably not going to have a squad specialization at first, but once you do, your very first one is going to be the sprint. Now, even though I'm not going to be 100% like pretending to be a level 1 guy again, but I will use the cover. I'm going to have the tugs on and the M9 with the default like setup for the MK11 mod, only because I'm going to like show you how easy it is to get those points that you can do to get your first sniper rifle, which is my favorite, like I said. So once we do that, I'll get into that as well. Alright, let's start the gameplay. Alright, so we're going to jump right into this gameplay, and it's using the MK11 mod with the M9 pistol, tugs, the squad cover, and the spawn beacon, which I will be showing you exactly what to use in this setting. Now, the reason why I'm playing TDM for this type of gameplay is only because I want to show you guys how to use the gun in different situations and how to use it. Now, I may not be the best DMR player, but I use bolt action, so I'm trying to like get back on the ropes of using it, but I do know how to use them when I can. So while using this gameplay, I took up the tugs away from this spot that I was normally at, only because I wasn't finding anybody. And when you're using the Recon class, you gotta be mobile. I don't like to sit still. I don't like to stay in one spot for too long because it does get boring. And when somebody knows that you're there, they're not always gonna be eager to get over there. And because of that, they're not gonna be too eager to get to where you're at, only because they know a Recon's probably gonna be sitting there with the tugs. Now there is, hang on, pause the video. There is a way to stay away from being seen on a tugs, which is also good for you if you're going to try to kill another Recon player on the opposite team. When you see a tugs or hear a tugs, the best way to be avoidant on the radar is to crouch down and walk around, and walk, which is known as crouch walking, like I did in Halo. Now, with this, it's not going to show you on radar when you are being trying to be spotted from the tugs or MAV, which I'll talk about later. This allows you to sneak up on your enemy. It doesn't always have to be a Recon. It can be everybody that's in that area as well, and that is why it's highly effective. And not a lot of people actually know how to be off the radar when they see a tugs. They go straight forward and try to shoot it, and then they get killed by the Recon that's next to it. So it's not really good not to know what to do. And knowing that, this is how, going back to the video, you can play it. So here we are. I'm running across the street, which is not always a good idea. And I instantly see this guy here running around, and oh man, my aim was really bad, but I eventually got the kill. And like I said, this gun allows you to be forgiven if you missed your shot. You'll be able to do a follow-up one really quickly, and that's why DMRs are very good. Now, I normally don't use an 8x scope for this type of gun, only because I recommend using a 3.4 scope, like I said earlier. It's a lot better. I don't like the screen. But as you see, I got the headshot and instantly switched to a pistol. That's your best thing you can do. Your pistol is one of your other best friend. First your radar, and then your pistol. I used a pistol for a lot of situations, and it helped me out a lot, and it will help you out as well. And there are times when different pistols have different abilities and stuff. Now for this instance here, I made the wrong choice of rushing up, knowing that there was going to be somebody rushing to me while I was being suppressed. And if you notice there, when I was getting shot at, my screen started getting blurry, and it was really difficult to see at times. Now, since I knew that some people were coming back, I don't know why that shot didn't register, but I instantly found this guy and try to get him with hip fire. Now this thing, I recommend don't using hip fire because it's not Call of Duty, but it is a very good way of killing someone right up close if they're right next to you. And then I instantly go around seeing that guy on the radar and take his tags. It's beautiful. Now, right after I did that, I instantly thought, okay, so my squad needs somewhere to spawn in since it is team deathmatch and they don't have that any way of spawning in at a good spot. So what I do here is get up to this building in order to in order to put a spawn beacon up inside. But then I instantly see these guys standing around just doing nothing, so I try to snipe them. I get a hit marker, but no kill. Then I get the assist because someone took him out. And that is why recons need to remember that you're not only there to get a kill, but you're also there to be a recon. Well, you have to tell your team where they're at. And which is why a recon should always have a mic and always tell their team, hey, there's a guy coming right next to you, right behind you, behind that building which you're at. I would have said, alright, there's some guys, 2 guys, support and engineer next to the big bus. And then my guys will be like, alright, okay, even if they're not talking, they'll be able to hear it. And then you notice I put my spawn beacon inside there, and my team will be able to spawn on there, which they do the entire game. Now, if you notice here, I'm being shot at. And the first thing I'm going to react is make sure you have something behind you while you're running away. Because when you're being suppressed, recons are useless. And even with the DMR, it's not always going to be reliable. So the first thing you got to remember is, if you're stuck and you have a way out, take it. Because if you don't, you'll be trapped and you will eventually die because they'll swarm you. Because recon cannot defend itself against an entire squad. I'm just gonna tell you right now that you cannot take down an entire squad unless you're like some god at Battlefield. But for the casual gamer for a console, I suggest you just like head back and try to get in a spot where you'll be able to pick them off without being seen. That is why I ran right back, let my health come back up, let the suppression wear off, and then I came back to look around. And if you notice here that I'm actually not being super aggressive. I'm actually being passive aggressive. And what I mean by that is I be aggressive only if somebody's next to me. And I kind of stay back. I pick out guys that I see that are in the distance. So here I am again. I come up to this building, I'm looking around, searching around, and then I find something really good to share with you guys. It is an engineer that just blindly walks around and not really being careful with the snipers. Then I spot him, look at this. So I kill him in the one shot in the face. And then his friend here, the assault guy, decides to revive him. This is something that people do all the time. And look, I kill the guy again and then pick the assault guy off right afterwards. Because he's like, what the hell is happening to my teammate there? That is something that you gotta do. And it's hilarious for a recon to do because it gives you free points, a free kill, if you time it right. Because if you notice there, I shot one shot and it didn't do anything. And then you have to shoot again because that spawn protection. Now there are times where you don't get the spawn protection. Like, you don't even get a chance to accept or deny the revive. So I'm just going to let you know about that. Now, you see here the sniper there, just sitting there. That is the prime example why I don't like to stay stationary. I don't like to use a bipod, and I don't like to stay in one spot. And that's a prime example right there. You easily get picked off because not only are you heard, but there's smoke, and people will eventually spot you, and then there's going to be a big red triangle nacho just standing right just over your head. Now, that is why I was able to spot him out. Now, if you notice there, I'm using a pistol, the M9. The M9 is a very good gun, 16 shots. Actually, it's 15, one in the chamber with 16. So, with that, I was able to get this guy that was just standing there, not even paying attention to his surroundings. He wasn't with the squad, and he was all alone, and he was easily picked off because my squad was able to spot him. Then I was able to spot him for myself and be able to pick him off. That is what spotting is super, super effective for this. If you're going to be a recon, you got to learn to spot. Now, for the Xbox, it's going to be the back button. For the PS3, it's going to be the select button. With those buttons, you'll be able to spot someone. Now, this is all default that I'm talking about. See another pistol kill right there? Running around with the pistol, very good. You don't have to use a sniper up close at all ranges, just have to know how to use it. Now, when you're going to spot, you have to spot the guy, and it'll only be for a few seconds that the spot will stay on him, and this red arrow will be over him. And that is why it's super effective, because your team will be able to come and get him. Even if they're not even going to be doing much, suppressing him is also an alternative if you're going to do that. Now, if you noticed, I got killed there because I wasn't paying attention to, like everyone else. I was only looking at one guy. And then since the kill cam showed me where he was, I came back and got the guy just because it was still standing there. But that's why you always got to move around. And staying in one spot is not a very good idea, especially for normal mode, because there is a kill cam where it tells you where you're at and at all times, which is why it's an enemy for a recon to do that getting a kill, because they'll be able to spot you. They'll be able to see where you're at all times. They'll be able to see where you're at, where you shot them from, and if they want, they'll even try to go right back to that spot in order to get payback and revenge for sniping them. And that's why it's hilarious, because you get to rage, like make them rage. Now, if you noticed here, I noticed a guy got killed in there, and I threw a grenade in order to make him like scared of that entrance. Then I went all the way around and snuck up behind him. I would have knifed him, but I don't really trust the knifing at all times, because it's not always reliable. There are times when it doesn't do it, and all it does is like a little swipe, and then the guy is able to turn around and kill you. Yeah, it's pretty much how it goes for a lot of the times I try it, which is why I try to stay away from it and just shoot them with a pistol or your sniper if you want to. So there's the gameplay for the MK11 mod, and I hope you enjoyed it. I got about a little bit more than 2,000 points from this game, and all you need is an extra, like less than 1,000 points in order to get the tugs, which I was using. And once you do that, continue doing what you're doing, place the tugs down, tell your team where they're at, and you will eventually get your first bolt-action sniper, the SV98, my favorite sniper. This concludes the first episode, and later in the second one, I will teach you to use the first bolt-action sniper for all scopes. Or at least the scopes that are actually good. Not all of them are actually good, but for the most part, I'll start off with a 7x scope and show you how to use the SV98 in a very effective way in both long range and short range, whatever kind of playstyle you desire to play as. Oh, as always, I'm Fire, and I'll see you on the battlefield. Stay cool, guys.